Okay, so let's talk about blood vessel anatomy. So there's going to be two types of blood vessels, okay? We have, now there's actually more than this, but just for today, we're just going to be talking about arteries, all right? And we're going to be talking about, veins, okay? And if you notice, I left room in here, all right? I'm going to be writing a lot over in there. So make sure you leave yourself some room, or if you just want to go down, you can. In fact, I'd suggest that. So the first one I'm going to put is elastic arteries. Okay, I'm going to write stuff on it. I'm going to write over there, but like I said, if you guys want to write down here, you can. And then I'm going to put muscular arteries. Okay, so I have elastic arteries and I have muscular arteries. Okay, so let's talk about these. My elastic arteries are going to be my large arteries. So for example, I have my pulmonary artery, or also known as the pulmonary trunk. Remember that came out of the right ventricle and it goes out to the heart. It splits into right and left pulmonary arteries and then goes to, not to the heart, it goes to the lungs to get oxygen. So that's pretty big. And then I have my, my aorta. And remember, the aorta is going to come out of the left ventricle and then it's going to provide blood throughout the body. Now, the reason that these are elastic is because they have to withstand the pressure from when the heart beats and all that blood is rushing into the arteries. So let's take a look real quick about what makes these up. They contain more elastic fibers, so they can stretch, right? Elastic fibers than muscle fibers. And we're going to be talking about the locations of these in just a minute, okay? And the reason for this is this allows them to expand and contract as blood enters them and between beats. Now remember, between beats, I'm still going to have blood in there, but the pressure is going to go down because I don't have the blood rushing into there. Okay? But the fact that they can expand, if you guys have physics, you'll know that if I increase the volume, I decrease the pressure. So this decreases the pressure differences between when the artery is receiving blood and between beats. So in other words, the blood's sitting in there, okay? So the blood is now just sitting inside the blood vessel, just waiting to get pumped further on. Okay, thumbs down if you need more time. The muscular arteries now, okay? So this, instead of being our really large arteries, this is going to be more of the arteries that deliver blood just around the body. And arteries that deliver blood around the body. Okay, so going up into the head, going to my arms, going into my legs, that's going to be muscular. Now, if this had more elastic fibers so it could expand, these are going to have more muscle fibers. Oh, I just realized I misspelled that. All right, so this has more muscle. More muscle fibers than elastic fibers. And the reason for that is because it can control the blood pressure. You're going to see in a little bit that we have muscle that can actually make these open and close. All right? So there's my, oh, and I guess, yeah, so there's more muscle fibers than elastic fibers, and then they're found in arteries that deliver blood around the body. Okay? So are we good on this? And then On veins, really the only thing I'm going to put about veins and we're going to talk more about this when we start looking at arteries, arterioles, venules, and veins. But for the most part, I'm just going to put this right now. On veins, they have valves. And the reason that veins have valves is they prevent blood from flowing backwards. So what I mean by that, I'm going to put backwards as a hyphenated word. What I mean by that is you got to figure veins carry blood back to the heart. So because they carry blood back to the heart, we have veins that are all the way down in our feet that have to carry the blood all the way back up to our heart. So there's valves in there. So if I were to draw my vein, it would look something like this. All right, and then I'm going to put a valve in here. And then as blood pumps, when the heart beats, the blood goes up, the valve opens up, and then between beats, the blood comes back and the valve closes and it keeps it from going back down. Okay, so that's the valves right there. All right, thumbs down if you need more time. Okay. Okay, so what we're going to talk about now is the 3 layers of blood vessels, or the 3 layers found in blood vessels, okay? So, the first layer is going to be called the Tunica Interna. All right, the Tunica Interna. And this is the innermost layer. Okay, and so this layer is going to be made up of endothelial cells. So if you remember, when we talked before, we basically said endothelial cells are basically the same as our skin cells, but they don't have the keratin. All right? So that's going to be lining the inside of the blood vessel. And I'm going to draw a picture of it in a minute. Okay? It also has connective tissue. Okay, that's connective tissue, which I'm going to call CT because I'm going to talk about connective tissue again, and elastic fibers. All right, and then I'm just going to put this, I didn't put this in my other classes, the endothelial cells decrease friction. So what's going to happen now is my blood will be able to flow easier because the endothelial cells are in there. So I'm going to draw 2 structures. I'm going to just draw the whole thing round, but I'm also going to do like a cross section of it so that way it's easier to label. So we come over here. I'm going to go like this. This is going to be in my Tunica Media. All right, and the open in the middle where blood goes is going to be called my lumen. But now I'm going to draw my endothelial cells, which you guys have seen me draw endothelial cells before on the heart, on the inside of the heart. And then we will be talking about this today because you actually have Ebola is actually going to attack the endothelial cell. So here's that connective tissue layer. And then I'm going to draw my endothelial cells. Okay, so this whole first layer here, we are going to call the Tunica Interna. Okay, and again, the Tunica Interna is going to be made up of the endothelial cells and the connective tissue, and then there's some elastic fibers in there. Okay, thumbs down if you need more time. Okay, everybody looks good. So then we're going to do the next layer. The next layer is going to be called, I'm going to move it over here just a little bit. I'll make this a square so it's a little easier to read. It's called the Tunica Media. Now, this is the middle layer. Okay, Remember, we said depending on the type of artery, it may have more elastic than it does muscle, or more muscle than elastic. So it has muscle and elastic fibers. Okay? And for the most part, what it can do is, we already saw, it can help with the decrease the size of the pressure that's in the big arteries, but it can control the blood pressure. So when it has more muscle, the muscle can contract and decrease the size of the blood vessel. That's called vasoconstriction, which we'll get into more in a little bit later on. Or it can open up, it's called vasodilation also. So that's going to be controlled by this middle layer. And that's this all right in here. Okay, and then I'm going to draw it over here. And so this is my Tunica Media right here. And again, that's my middle layer. It's made up of muscle or elastic fibers. If it's made up of elastic fibers, it's designed to expand and contract. So therefore, we can keep those pressure differences in large arteries from becoming too great. If it's going out to the rest of the body, if it's in a middle size or even a smaller arteriole or a middle-sized artery, it's going to be responsible for opening and closing the size of the blood vessel to control the blood pressure. And then the outer layer, and I'm actually drawing this bigger than it would be in relation to everything else, is called the Tunica Externa. Okay, and this is my outer layer, outermost layer. Okay, that's my outermost layer. It's made up of connective tissue. And remember, we said over here, CT means connective tissue. And basically what this is going to do is it's going to help hold the artery in place, or the vein in place. So it holds blood vessels in place by connecting to surrounding tissue. Okay, so that's the Tunica Externa. So the Tunica Interna is going to be the innermost layer. It's going to decrease friction because of the endothelial cells. The Tunica Media can play two different roles, whether it's has elastic fibers for opening and closing and decreasing pressure differences as the large arteries fill up with blood or have blood in them. Or it can also control the blood pressure as it goes throughout the rest of the body by vasoconstriction or vasodilation as these muscles contract and expand. And then the Tunica Externa, which is going to basically be responsible for holding this in place, the blood vessels in place. Okay? Okay, so then this is the Tunica Externa. That's right there. And again, this is it. Oh, and really quick, this is the lumen. So this is the part that the blood is going to be in. Okay?